Welcome back to another episode of Right Here in Mass. Joining me today is Jess McDaniel, the photographer behind Boston Baby Photos, where she's spent the past 22 years capturing joyful, heartfelt moments for families in and around Boston. With over 3,000 sessions under her belt, Jess now photographs 160 to 180 families each year in their homes and favorite local spots. Jess, welcome to the show.
Hey, nice to see you, Ashley.
Yes, it's nice to have you, and I am super impressed that Boston Baby Photos has been around for 22 years. That is crazy.
It just keeps going, right? You start it up and then you just keep chugging along and it goes and goes and goes. It's great. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, so exciting. I'd love to start there by having you share more about you and what you do and even how you got into this work.
Sure. Well, I came at it, I always say it's a funny angle to sort of come at a creative business because I came at it from a business perspective. I went to business school and I got an MBA at night while I was working in marketing in my 20s. And I was thinking, as I was building, working in getting my MBA, I was thinking, what do I want to do with my life? What's my career trajectory going to be? And I kept sort of landing on I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to make my own life. I want to be my own boss. I want to
Hmm.
figure out a way to build a business that will let me I had a lot of fun in business school with all the elements of a business, all the the marketing side of things, and even like invoicing, like the most basic stuff, and understanding that kind of stuff. So I started thinking about how I would make that into something. And at the time, there weren't a ton of people going into families' homes and taking pictures at home. There were a lot of studio photographers, but the idea of coming into a family's home and taking pictures in their home wasn't as common as it is now. And so it seemed sort of innovative back in the day. Um,
Yeah.
and so I was taking pictures for friends. I had minored in photography in my undergraduate program, and I had that as sort of like a little hobby. And I was taking pictures for friends who were having babies and giving them little albums that I'd made for them. And I started to think, oh, I might be able to do this for a living. And so I just started out really small. I started on the weekends while I still kept my full-time job for a year or two. Um, and it just came to the point where I was like, you know what? I think I could do this. I think this is, and it was, right as I was finishing up my MBA, and I was like, this is it. I'm going to do this. And I said, if I'm as knowledgeable as the next guy about balance sheets and figuring out how to put together an income statement, I'm going to go for it. And so that was in 2000 and I think I call it, what do I say this? I think it's 2005. Was that right? No, 2003 is when I started. That's right. And then
Mhm.
I had a baby in 2005. That's where my different dates. But so then I started my business and I kind of just stuck my head in the sand. It was the when I described like I never really did any of that sort of comparison thing where you like look at what other people are doing and try to compete with them. I just sort of put my head down and was like,
Mhm.
this is what I'm going to do. I am going to really make people happy with what I deliver to them. And I am going to create like the style of photography I wanted to do. I'm like, this is the way I want to do it. I wanted to do primarily black and whites. At the time, the sensors and the cameras weren't as good as they are now, and I wanted to shoot indoors. I wanted to work with young children. I knew that like birth to 3 was about my sweet spot of ages. And so I built a business that was based on, for necessity. Black and white photography at the time made more sense, because when using ambient light, which is the way I do it, I don't bring in lights. I just use the light in the home. When using ambient light, it's a very yellow tone. And at the time, it was hard to adjust that in our post production. And so, you know what? The simple solution was provide it only in black and white, because then I was like, oh, it's all about like the emotion and the connection with the family, like connecting with each other. And so it was sort of necessity meets invention. I don't know what that expression is, but it was the mother of invention, right? So I created a style based on what was sort of a necessity at the time, and then really leaned into it over time and started to say, I just like passionately love the idea of telling a story through light and through dark and shadow. Um, and then there came a point 5 or 10 years in where I started providing all my photos in color as well, every photo in black and white and color to my clients, because then the sensors were better and I was in,
Mhm.
and what I was getting. I mean, it's just been so fun to watch the way technology has changed in this industry and the way that my cameras have gotten better, and my, you know, I feel like obviously my skills have gotten better, but the technology has also just advanced so incredibly, and it's so fun to upgrade the machine that you're holding, and see like the way that it captures the moment differently than the last machine that you held.
Totally.
And yeah, it's been a really neat ride. And then in the past couple of years, ever since I hit 20 years, I thought about what I want my next, iteration of this business to become, and how my, what do I see as the future of this? And I started thinking about the phones that we carry in our pockets all the time, and how those are, something that parents have this ability to, you like all of a sudden have such an extraordinary piece of machinery in your pocket all the time. But I think that it's a little bit of it's an added stressor on parents, that now you actually don't feel like you necessarily need to hire a professional anymore. Now it's like, you know what, you're just one more role as parent. Now you're also photographer, and you also need to capture the, like, completely tell the story of your children and your family, because that's just one more thing that you need on your list to do. So I started thinking about how I could help parents with that, and with that added, challenge and aspect of parenting. And what I did is I started looking at my entire history of all the photos I've taken of toddlers over time, and looked at which of the photos are the most iconic. I started thinking about this idea of like iconic photography. And I created something I call the iconic set. So it's the photos that we take of our toddlers and I focus on from 1 to 3, so that just like 1 and 2 year olds. And the idea that all throughout the year, there's one photo a month that I think is the one that a parent of a 1 or 2 year old should take of their toddler. And so I created this little subscription program called the Iconic Photo Monthly, that parents of toddlers can join with me, and I give them a prompt, and I text them every Friday with some tips about how to get the photo. And it's based on the age of your child and the month of the year. So if it's
Mhm.
September and your child is, you know, say 17 months old, then that's like a photo you would want to take in a swing. Like, put them in a swing, go down on your knees, like come eye to eye with them. Like, I want you to get that really great close up of them smiling as they're laughing toward you in the swing. Like, it's just like really, really specific photos for particular ages of children, because I know that it is so, they run around so much at that age, and it's so hard to get them to stay still. So like there's like all these tricks built in to this iconic set of photos over time. So I am working really hard to let people know all about the iconic set now. I have a summer program that I teach parents through the 3 photos to take in the summer. It's called the Summer Iconic, and that is a video-based little course that people can take, um, teaching, and that goes in a little bit more depth with like how to's, and it shows me teaching. I had a wonderful assistant come film me teaching parents how to take great photos with their phones. And so I have 3 different programs, one for 12 to 18-month-old babies. I have an 18 to 24-month-old program, and I have a 2-year-old program for the 3 photos to take in the summer. So those are my like fun little new things. I'm like launching into a new area of business, while also, of course, still taking tons of photos of families in their homes as well.
Yeah, and I love that you had mentioned that once you hit that 20-year mark is when you really kind of thought about, okay, what's next for myself and Boston Baby Photos. And so I don't want to call the programs that you do passive, because there's, of course, work involved on your end, but I'd say a little bit more hands-off compared to you going into sessions and whatnot with your clients. But I'm curious to hear what that shift was like to be so in the weeds, I guess, basically with your clients, to now being able to offer more of those hands-off services to open up more of your time.
Yeah, I mean, it is right now. I am realizing it is so exciting and terrifying to enter a new kind of business and to
Yeah.
sell something different than I've ever sold before. And to, the idea of cold sales versus warm sales. I my entire career it is not hard for me to convince someone to work with me. Like basically like the photos speak for themselves. People call me, I answer the phone and I get work. And so it's never been an issue for me to find business. I've been very lucky to have had a very successful life as doing what I do. But
Mhm.
all of a sudden now it's like, okay, this is an entirely different world. You could sell this product to people in California, people in England, to people in Canada, and but they don't know me, and so there's no warmth, there's no, and so I need, so it's just, it's actually so fun, and I really love like business challenges. I
Yeah.
think I get a lot of energy out of the idea of learning something new and trying something new and seeing how it goes, and like, I'm learning about Facebook ads. I'm learning about social media and like trying to build an online presence through like an Instagram following that, it's just a very slow build. And, but then at the same time, then you have this audience of people who are like might be interested in hearing about what you have to offer, and then selling to them and like convincing them this thing is incredible, and different ways of having them understand that, and convincing somebody to let go of their $37 for
Yeah.
like, it's like, wow, I didn't think it would be so hard to sell a $37 item. Like, I'm like, I can sell something that's, people are like, oh, I tell friends that I'm doing this thing. They're like, oh, you're teaching everything you've ever learned, and you've distilled it in something, and you're providing that for them for $37. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, it's such a steal. Yeah, I know. But really, when you think about it, like, you are the buyer, for
Right.
you to part with $37, like, I'm like, oh my God, that is that's a
Yeah.
lot. I have to be like really sold. So it's been just so interesting. I'm having a really fun time. And of course, I thought it was going to go like, oh my gosh, it's gonna sell like it's and it actually requires some work.
Yeah.
Crazy thought that you actually have to work to get, but it
Yeah.
is at the same time just like so much fun. I'm having such a good time with it.
Absolutely. And I think it's really great that you incorporated the education piece into your business with the parents. Have you ever considered, or would you ever consider incorporating education piece for other photographers? Since you have almost 25 years in business, is that something you would ever think about doing and teaching to other professionals?
I will say honestly, that's the easier route.
Yeah.
I think if I'd gone that way, I you can make a lot of money doing that. And I saw
Mhm.
that. I saw so many people who are at my level of what I do, who then turn to sell their experience, and to sell, like, you like, for me to create programs to teach other photographers, it it felt like that would be the easy route. Honestly, I don't know why. I felt
Yeah.
like, well, that's what everybody does when they're my like, and then if I'm a new photographer, I would definitely spend a couple $100 learning, like getting a course from a photographer who'd been doing it for a long time. And I would definitely, like, that seems like a great way. It's a business expense at that point, and it's easy. So you need to sell so many fewer of your course if you are selling them for
Right.
hundreds versus like, I could create a course that is, a much higher price point and make more money, or but I felt like there's this, I've gotten so that I'm like passionate about the idea of helping parents put their phones down. Like, that's actually more, now I'm like, I have a reason for doing what I'm doing now. And
Hmm.
it's not so much just me to make money and me to like teach another photographer to do it. Like, I have all these nice business models that like are very successful and everything, but like, teaching somebody else to do that, that's one thing. But what about teaching a parent how they can do this a little better? They can take their couple of photos that, like, the very specific, very simple photos that I'll teach them how to do. And then what if they can put their phone down and like play in the water table the rest of the summer? They've got their water table photo. They already did that one at the beginning of the summer. So that means, like, I've heard from people who've taken my course and have been like, I didn't pick up my phone again the entire rest of the time he played in that water table every morning. And then the rest of the summer, I went out there and I played with him in that water table every morning. And I didn't pick up my phone the rest of the summer because I already had that photo. And I'm like, that is so cool. That's the difference I want to make. I want to actually like change people's like dynamic with their device, because we are so drawn into them. They are so
Yeah.
magnetic. The dopamine hit of picking up your phone, of like, but the fact is, you pick up your phone and take a photo, and like you get a notification and you check a quick message and you get pulled into a call with your boss, or like all these things. It's like, if it's just in your hand and you're trying so hard just to be present with your child, and it's so hard to do. But like, if you're better at the photography, if you either have a plan for the photo to take and you know exactly how you're going to do it, you just have your phone in your hand that much of a shorter amount of time, which then like, it's like, it feels like a mission now. I feel like that is such a legacy to leave behind. It's like, that is so cool that I could help people be tied to it less. It's just
Yeah.
such, yeah. So that's my reason for that one.
And I think that's so great because it almost sounds like when you discovered that it kind of seems like it wasn't exactly your original intention was to get parents on their phones less. It kind of came out of it. Would you say that's right?
Actually, it kind of, so it did kind of come from that. But
Hmm.
then I think I went a circuitous route. Like, I started out feeling like I want to teach parents to take, better photos. But I also like, I talked to business coaches and stuff along the way, and we talked about like, what is it that parents need and what is it that like will resonate with parents. And that was
Yeah.
an early thing that was, we talked about being necessary. Like, that was the sort of reason for being. But it's a long path to get there, because then I went into like, wow, I really have to teach this well. I have to like create some really good content. These have to be like short little videos that are like got really good tips in them, that have like, and so the path to me creating the product, I think I got kind of mired in the all the teaching and all the like
Hmm.
what it is. And even so, like when I was beginning to sell it, especially the summer iconic, this is the season right now where I'm really selling the summer iconic. And in the last month or two of selling it, my first, you know in early April and stuff, all my messaging was like about, it's going to be so great what you're going to learn. You're going to learn such great stuff. You are, like, think of all these skills you're going to get. And then like, it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was like, wait a minute, what am I saying? Like, it's not about the skills. I mean, it is about the skills, but that's so secondary to the fact that I'm hoping you're going to put your phone down after, and that like
Yeah.
you will feel this moment where you've gotten your photo of the month, and this is your, 12 pictures of your child in a year that you put in frames around your home. That's pretty, like, that's telling the story of this year. That is what you need. We take obviously 500 on our phones, right? We're gonna have hundreds of photos of our children, but being able to identify which ones are the ones we're gonna put in the frames and which ones are the ones that are going in like the calendar that you make for the grandparents at Christmas, like, it is the big part of it. And so, I know I kind of, in the early messaging of it, and probably to my detriment, was talking too much about like, you're going to learn such great skills. It's like, you have a 1 or 2 year old, you are so tired, you don't have any
Yeah.
time to learn. Like, well, like, this has got to be a simple thing, in and out. Like, that's why I think that's Iconic Photo Monthly does well, is I have a lot of subscribers in that program, because I it's so simple. It's like, this is your one photo, here's examples of the photo, and I'll text you every Friday.
Hmm.
It's just like so simple that one is like beloved by the people who do it. They're like, this is just exactly what, okay, I have the one photo, especially for like, it's your second child or it's your
Yeah.
third child. And you just are like, I
Who
just want to make
historically
sure I
get less photos taken of them.
totally, exactly.
Yeah. And you brought up a really good point there when you talked about changing your messaging is just the importance of, as a business owner, like always being aware of stuff like that. And I think as business owners, we are also guilty of kind of like having that tunnel vision and being too close to something that it can be hard to
Totally.
take a step back and be like, wait a second, should I do something different? And so I think that was a really great move on your end to really have more of that view from above, so to say, about what you could be doing differently and seeing if that will bring
Mm-hmm,
better
mm-hmm.
results.
Exactly, exactly. And it's so much also, this is the such a world of like people telling people, like, I
Yeah.
find, moms or parents will tell like, last summer I did this thing, like, you've got to do this thing, like, and you value it so much more when a friend tells you that
Hmm.
they have gotten something out of something. So that's been, the word of mouth part of things is also like, fun to sort of track and pay attention to.
Definitely. And since you've recently, or in the past few years, have launched the iconic set, what would you say is next for Boston Baby Photos in the next year or so? If you have anything exciting working on that you can talk about, or anything you just feel really passionate about.
Oh, it's a good question. There is a percolating idea about a holiday card challenge that I'm thinking
Oh,
about.
fun.
Yeah, and everybody I said to go like that. They're like, they get so excited. And so I'm not sure if that's a 2025 plan or a 2026 plan. It has in thought, it basically needs to be the next month or so that I get it built. And so I have a few days, I have like 9 days allocated in June for this concept. But then at the same time, I may use them to dig deeper on making sure that my messaging on the current products feel like really right. Because sometimes I feel like I get too far ahead of myself and too many ideas, and I need to like make sure that that the other ones have their feet under them. I and that so that is so I know there is a holiday card challenge out there. There's a I have a lot of like things that I think about related to that are complicated because I do think so much of the time when people send out holiday cards, they need a family photo on one side and they need a children photo on the other side. And then there's like multiple kids in the family. And I'm really focusing on that whole like birth to three or 1 and 2 year old children. And so I think about what does that mean for a holiday card challenge and how am I really serving what somebody would want?
Hmm.
Because I mean, you're going to want your older kids, you need like a picture of all of them. And so then, like, every possible combination and permutation of size of group of families and what is so I have it's like it needs a lot more cogitation before I can before I can decide I'm going to do it. But everybody I say that to is like, "Ooh, holiday card!" It's like it is a really good idea. Like it's in there. It's a possibility. I think it realistically it's going to be next year, not this year, but it'll be a fun one when it happens.
Yeah, it does sound fun. And you mentioned briefly about allocating 9 days next month to thinking about that. Are you very structured with your time? Like, do you have it really blocked out? I'm always so curious to hear how people like focus on their productivity and time management. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Oh yeah, I'm such a time blocker. Yeah. Like I'm down to the 15-minute mark. But yeah, when I'm blocking out months, when I was building the product, I allowed myself, I think I said because for a while it was doing something that was completely not making money, right? So I have one part of the
Mhm.
business that makes money. I have like my photography business, like where I'm going to families' homes. And so then I would block off days. And I think it was five. I would allow myself. So I have 20 working days a month. I'd like to think of them. I like to pretend I don't work weekends. I don't know why I pretend that because I do. I work every single weekend. But in my mind, I have 20 working days, and then in my mind, I was like 5 of those days I can allocate to building the iconic set. And now I'm down to 3 or 4 because I built. I only have 3 more months. Two more months. I only need to build a couple more for the iconic photo monthly. I have built June already, so I need to build July and August, and then I'll be done with the full year's program. I started it in September, so I still have 2 more months to just get into the hopper for those. And yeah, I block as the month. Like I could look at you could ask me like, what are you doing? Even though I don't have a boss that is paying attention to these things, but I'm paying attention. Like, next Tuesday I have shoots, and then I have the edit dates for those shoots. So I like book in. When I see that I'm shooting somebody on the Saturday or something, I'll block in their edit on the Tuesday or something. And so like every time I book a shoot, I have the edits blocked in,
Oh,
and
nice.
then yeah, and so I always allocate. If I have a full session, I allocate a day to their edit. If I have a mini session, I allocate a half a day to that edit. And then building albums for families. I do a lot of baby sessions, and my baby's first year package comes with an album in it. So I'm often designing albums, so those are blocked in, and like I know so that when I'm at a session with a family, I can tell them, "You'll see your pictures next Wednesday" or whatever. So I just think that's such
Yeah.
a very important part of client relationships is feeling like they know that there's a loop that you're closing. It's not just. I think
Hmm.
that's a huge mistake that newer photographers make is like you do the pictures and you walk out of the door and they're like, wait. They don't say it. They're so happy they've had such a good time at their photo shoot, but they don't realize that they have a very important question for you, which is when am I going to see my photos? And when you
Yeah.
can tell them that as you're walking out the door, it gives them the sense of relief of like, okay, it's not just like I'm not going to be ghosted by this person. I'm not going to like she is committed to a date when she will show me my pictures. So I feel like that's always been a really, I mean, client relationships and being accountable to my clients and feeling like I am like going to solve every problem for them has always been just like number one for me. I want to make the experience like just so perfect for them. And so, you know, kids are so unpredictable that I like to be something sort of pretty. Don't worry, I will solve that. That will be fine. Don't worry, don't worry. Yeah, so it's I always feel like I want to make it as like pleasant and easy an experience for them as possibly can be. Yeah, so I'm very overly organized with my time.
I'm so glad that you mentioned the point about client relationships because I've always felt that being a really great communicator and also doing the things that you say you do and you say you're going to do them is like easily two of the biggest things that will lead you to success as a business owner. Like you said, people just
100%.
want to know that they're taken care of. And so I
Yes,
think it's so
100%.
great and definitely a differentiator for you that you really set yourself apart by that, by being super clear about expectations and deliverables and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's just people honestly like you don't hire a photographer very often. It's kind of an exciting thing to do. It's a big,
Right.
expensive thing to do, and then you want to be like you want it to just be perfect. Like if you're going to do it, you're going to put your hard-earned money towards this person, and they're going to provide you with something. You want to know what you're getting. You want to like their style. You want to pick the photographer that works for you. But you also want to feel cared for and feel like they're gonna like live up to all the type of expectations that you have in your mind for them.
Totally. And you mentioned something too about that being a really good thing for young photographers to learn is just being able to really focus on those client relationships. For anyone who's listening to this show who is newer to the photography industry, what advice would you have for them in addition to that? I know, especially from what I've seen from other photographers, they struggle with feeling like they're in a saturated market. So, like anything along those lines, or even anything else that you found brought you to success that you could share.
Oh, absolutely. I work with a few younger photographers as assistants sometimes, and I find myself having these conversations more and more as I spend more time. And I find it really, I love these kind of conversations. I think it's so interesting. And one of the things that I always say is when you're newer to it, it's a really experimental, fun time. Like this is the chance.
Mhm.
And, and in terms of like how to price oneself and how to feel like you're getting, enough back from, it's a very hard business to price yourself in because you want to be competitive, but you also want to make sure that your time is respected and that you're being compensated for the time that you put in tons of time into this. Um, and so what I do suggest often is like, what about, putting up a price. Like that's, one photographer I work with who's a student at Wellesley, I told her, put up a price list on your website for your friends. Like it doesn't matter if these are only your friends hiring you right now. Like if you've published it and you've said, this is what I will do for you for this amount of money, whatever amount of money it is, whatever you feel, then they feel like they can hire you instead of just telling them
Mhm.
that, can you do photo? I think when you're new to it as a student or something, you're like, people will say, can you do photos for me? You're like, yeah, totally. Like you're so psyched for a client. Like, no, you know what? Like tell them what you're gonna do for them and how much you're gonna charge for it.
Right.
And put that in writing so that then it's something to work for, like then you'll, end up spending hours and hours on something. Like it's nice to like, I will spend an hour with you and I expect to provide you with X and this is what you are paying me for. And just so that it's like that's not really a good answer to your question. You had a much broader, bigger, better question. And I
No,
answered
I
it in
think
a
that's
very
great though.
tactical way. Very tactical. Um, but I think generally it's more about finding a need in the market and filling it, and then
Mhm.
like thinking about from the perspective of your customer, who is the person who's going to hire you. Put yourself, okay, if you are working only for artists who currently go to your college and they are going to hire you to take pictures of them in art and their art, then think about what it is that they want the most from you. And
Mhm.
then can you create a service? Can you create something for them that will really fill that need? And therefore you can charge for it. And I think it's so much about stepping into the shoes of the person who might hire you and thinking about what they might want and how you can do that for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you remember, what were your first ways or methods that you used to get new clients? I know that you mentioned now like a lot of it is referral based and a lot of it just comes naturally, which is amazing to have that. But I know one thing too that people struggle with is just getting that first client in the door. So what
Yeah.
would you say is a good process for that?
Oh, I think early on it's just friends. People
Hmm.
hire, people who are like, oh, they will pay you to do this. Even somebody, even your sister, like, the people will pay you to do the thing because they'll get something they want out of it. And so it's a matter of I started out um with yeah, it was like friends of my mother's who were like willing to pay me to come and do, and they were very much test balloons. You're trying this out, and
Yeah,
you're seeing how you do, and you're learning so much every single time you do it that it's so valuable. But not doing it for free, doing it, there's
right.
always going to be some sort of exchange of something that I feel like honoring your own time is such a big deal, and not undercharging for something that is, your equipment costs so much, and your time to learn it, the fact that you're good at what you do, all that is what they're paying for. And it's not just like, oh, you're only there for an hour, so I should pay you for an hour worth. No, you're paying for like the fact that you own this equipment and the fact that you have this knowledge. There's so much more that I always feel like encouraging younger photographers to charge what they're worth. It's a big
Yeah,
deal.
great reminder. And really for any service business as well to charge what they're
100%.
worth. And
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
question too, is geared towards photographers, but I feel like it also could apply to service businesses. But I feel like as us service-based business owners, since we're in that one-to-one client relationship, it can be hard if the client feels like they didn't have a great experience or they gave you feedback that wasn't as good as you'd hoped it would be. And so I'm sure you've experienced that in your career as well. And so I'm curious to hear how you've managed that, if you've been in difficult situations or if you get not so great feedback, how you keep putting one foot in front of the other without it letting hold you back ultimately.
The one that always jumps to mind when I hear that kind of question is a woman I worked with so long ago. Um, I mean, I will tell you, her oldest children, I think even the youngest one is through high school now. So we're talking about, this was 15 years ago, easy. And I so clearly remember she got her photos from me, and she was a really like buttoned up businesswoman. She knew what she wanted, and she her expectation, and like her idea of what this was going to be, like it was got to be a certain way. And one particular photo that I delivered was softer than the rest of the gallery, so like that means like it didn't catch the focus quite as much as it would. I would know we all would have wanted it to catch the focus. So that, and it was, I can still picture the photo so clearly, and it's like the older brother is sitting and his little brother is like twisting in his lap and his feet are in the air, and I thought that was such a joyful moment. Like I loved the moment of it, and I had provided the gallery. Normally, like, I would just toss off image, like anything that's like the photo that catch the focus, I wouldn't include it in a gallery. And she reached out and she was like, I want this in a I want this in an 8x10, this photo. I love this photo. But like, what's going on? Like, it's softer than, like, it's not, it doesn't look right to me. She didn't know how to describe it, but it didn't look like it was as in focus as she wanted it to be. And I was so like horrified that I'd
Yeah.
provided this in the gallery. I was like, I shouldn't have kept it in there. Like, how did I'm such a dork that I left it in there. But like, I just emotionally felt super connected to the image. I thought it was really, and she wanted an 8x10 of it. Like it was right. It was a great picture, but it was softer than the others. And I had to get to the point in that where I was like, all right, I got to find a way to talk to her about this and explain to her like why I kept the image in the album, and like it is sort of doesn't meet my quality standards, but at the same time, like the emotion. And so I just talked to her a little bit about like that day, what, came and went. Kids are getting older every day. Like, to me, I felt it was more important to include that image in your album than to not, because I knew it would never happen again, and you would never have the opportunity for this picture to exist in the world unless I kept that for you. But I agree with you, it is not as clear. I think you should put in a 5x7 instead of an 8x10. Like it'll look better as a 5x7, because when you go to 8x10, it's going to look a little bit, you'll be able to see the softness of it. Like, and she and I became so connected after that back and forth of the like conflict that we'd had because she came at me like she was coming at me. She was not happy with that situation. But
Yeah.
somehow, but because we were able to talk it through and explain, and I kind of got her on my side with as to why the image is in there. And she's like, 100% amazing. I'll take it as a 5x7. I will put it on my wall. Like I still not go into her home, and it's up in her Cape house. Like it's because it was a great moment, but it wasn't quite what I would have wanted it to be. But like I don't know. So sometimes the conflict, and I always think back to that time with her
Hmm.
because it cemented. She then has hired me every year since then. Like I have seen her, and we are like totally connected as people, and it worked out so much long term because she had a problem. I came back with my why, and we were able to get to the point where it made sense to her, and she was okay. Like it wasn't so. That's a long explanation for a funny little thing,
Yeah.
but it sticks with me because I love her now as a client so much. I'm so every time I see her, I'm like, I love, these people that I've
Yeah.
seen forever.
No, I think that's a great example though, because like you alluded to, it's really just the importance of, again, going back to what we talked about earlier, communication. And so you easily could have said, "Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Let me just remove this." But you took the time to explain to her and educate her on why you chose it and why you felt like it was such a really important photo to include. And it reminds me of how most people don't know what they don't know. So that was for her. She didn't know what she didn't know about why it was important to include it. So I think it's a really good reminder for everyone listening when you do get in a situation like that to just communicate and you can easily clear things up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And as we get closer to the end of this episode, Jess, I love to ask our guests what their favorite local businesses are to support. And so I'm excited to hear what yours are.
Okay, well, I have two. I love that you prepared me for this question beforehand because I so my favorite local, I spend a lot of time at Steel and Rye in Milton. It's a great little restaurant cafe. It's a bakery in the morning. It's a workspace in the evening. It's a great like industrial bar, just beloved by locals. If anyone is ever in the area of Milton, south of the city, it is a wonderful restaurant with incredible menu and like great bar. Really like a great environment. I love Steel and Rye. And then in terms of nonprofit, I have to give a shout out to Refuge Point, which is an organization in Cambridge. They're helping, they help refugees who've fallen through the net of humanitarian assistance. And our wonderful family friend founded it 20 plus years ago. And they are doing incredible work helping refugees out of, they have a location in Africa, and they have one here. And they're just, if anyone is looking for a wonderful organization to support, refugepoint.org is their website.
Love it. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, of
And
course.
thank you so much, Jess, for coming on the show. I'd now love to give you the opportunity to share with our listeners where they can find you online in case they'd like to connect.
Thanks. I'm at bostonbabyphotos.com. You can find me at Boston Baby Photos on Instagram and on Facebook. But my passion project is the iconic set. So you can find me at it's called Phone Photos with Jess on Instagram. I'm building that following, and I've got Phone Photos with Jess and on Facebook as well, and on TikTok. So you can find me there. And I would love to chat with anybody.
Amazing. And I'll link to all those places in the show notes that our listeners can easily click through and chat with you from there. Thank you so much again for coming on today's show.
Thanks, Ashley. Appreciate it. This is wonderful. I really appreciate the opportunity.